Welcome. Today is our move into stillness meeting. And we touched a little bit on this yesterday in the Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness meeting. And I want to take a moment to look at it again in the context of our meeting today, because it's such a, in my view, it's such an important point, which is that we can look at the nature of suffering. So let's just take a moment right now to explore directly our experience of suffering. Because if we don't know what it is that we're reacting to, then we're not going to really, we're just blind. So we're not going to make much, not going to have much success. We're not going to have, see much improvement in our experience if we're blind to the nature of the actual problem. So we can take a moment right now just to notice directly in your own experience, what is the nature of the suffering? So hopefully that word suffering is easy for you, but if it's not easy for you, if you find that you're reactive to that word, and I understand we're all reactive to certain things, then you can substitute something else. That's fine. I'm just using that word because it seems the easiest and simplest, but you could understand it any other way that you want. It's really just to see that you're here right now for a reason, and that we want that reason to be cleared. So the reason is that you're unhappy in some way, and that's okay. I mean, it's not like I know that in today's world, we're not supposed to be unhappy. And it's usually like we take that as a sign of failure and shortcoming, and we're not supposed to admit to that. But here it's safe. It's a safe space just to be truthful and just to admit, yes, I'm unhappy in some way. I'm not satisfied in some way. There's some suffering in some way. And we want to just look at that and see what is the actual nature of that. And the invitation is to, of course, this is a somatic exploration meeting, so it's even clearer today, perhaps, than yesterday's meeting, that or at least it should be, that the invitation is to look directly, not to the mind, but to your actual experience, the direct experience. So if you take the labels and interpretations off, just hit pause on that for a moment, just for a moment. Or if you can't hit pause on it, that's fine too. You just let it all stream by, all the thoughts and opinions and judgments and evaluations and analysis. Let that just float by for a moment and notice what's underneath that, which is just an unease. Hopefully that's clear. That really, if you could have any thought you want about what's happening, and that thought really doesn't matter at all unless there's a feeling. You can try that out. You can think right now, just humor me and choose to think the thought to yourself. I'm a purple space alien. And you notice that this thought, I am a purple space alien, it's meaningless to you. I mean, hopefully it's meaningless. It's not going to stick because there's no real value to it. It doesn't seem to have any importance to you. So the thought by itself is not important. It's really when the thought is coupled with a feeling, and that feeling is very charged, then we seem to give a lot of importance to it. So the thought, I'm suffering, is not important. Well, let's say it's not, I won't dismiss it entirely. It's not entirely unimportant. Certainly there can be some benefit in reconfiguring our thinking if we have chronically negative thinking, but its effect will be fairly minimal if that's all that's done. So really, the essence of the problem, the suffering, is this sense of unease, is the feeling. It's the feeling, and the feeling, um, as we often look at, and you can notice it right now, okay, actually by itself, this feeling has no meaning. The meaning is just what's layered on by the thought, but the feeling is just pure energy. When they combine out of habit, we have a sense that there's this feeling is bad. Don't like it. I don't like this feeling that I call unease or unhappiness or whatever else I might call it. So now look a little bit more closely and see what is the nature of this feeling. So we often think feelings just happen, and I guess there's some truth to that, but let's see, what is it that's happening? Is this feeling some object that's being pressed upon us? So we want to look and see what is the feeling. And I'll give you, I mean, most of you know already my answer to that because you've heard me say it too many times. But I'll give you a clue if you don't remember, if this is your first time, that you could look and see, and don't just take my word for it, but just look to see if you can see the truth of it for yourself, that the actual nature of the feeling is that it's an effort, it's a contraction, or you could say an armoring. So you notice there's like a squeezing, there's a sense of unease is because there's this squeezing, this contraction, this effort that's being made, and necessarily what that means is we don't seem to be fully at rest. We're not able to really enjoy the deep satisfaction and nourishment of rest. So if you can recall, even vaguely, having ever had a sense of wellness, and I know for some of us that's a real challenge, but maybe you can vaguely recall a sense of wellness, having had a glimpse of that maybe in childhood or early adulthood, or who knows when. You know, it seems for most of us, it seems to go downhill pretty rapidly from early adulthood onward, if not sooner than that. But you can maybe recall what that sense of wellness was like. And it's like this just a fresh breeze, isn't it? It's just there. It's not because of a doing. It's not because you achieved something. It's not because of some effort you made. It's actually because of the absence of effort. It's because of this sense of being carried or cared for, supported, and not having to do anything for it. So hopefully this is clear-ish, because this is and the reason I'm taking time with this at the beginning is because it's so central to this work. Okay, because if we with this work, it's not mechanical. It's not just how, it's not just the doing, it's the way in which we approach it. And we can do it in a very wonderful way, or we can do it in an absolutely awful way. And from the outside, nobody could know the difference. Only way to know the difference is you subjectively can know the difference, because you can have a sense of how much presence you're bringing to it. Presence is one of those strange things that it's hard to really talk about, but we've become familiar with it through repetition and curiosity and openness and willingness. It's a learning process, as I often say. So, but presence is relaxed and it's effortless. So oftentimes especially in the early stages, we think, oh, presence, oh, I have to do that. And no, it's not, it's not that. So the presence is actually the wellness. So that seems a little bit circular. We have to bring presence in order, which is wellness, in order to discover wellness. Well, how do we even begin then? Just empty your bowl, have patience, and be curious and open, and that's the best way. So again, the reason I'm pointing this out is because this is so essential to success with this work, because it's really, really counter to the normal way. You know, we've all been inculcated with this way of the world, which is do through force and violence, and relying on momentum. And what we're doing here is to relax, to trust, to open, to surrender. And through this is a wonderful learning that occurs, but it's very challenging because of the degree of conditioning of only doing. So hopefully you can see in your own experience that the problem really, and this is the problem at all levels, is the problem physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, is that we don't know how to shut off this chronic efforting. And even when I suggest that we shut off the chronic efforting, our initial reaction to that is usually to make more effort trying to shut off the efforting. So you see, this is the mess we find ourselves in. And it's why we have to be so gentle and patient. And goodness knows, I know that is a tall order, because we don't have a lot of patience and we don't have a lot of compassion, especially for ourselves. But that again points out what the real trouble is. It's not about we need to learn how to do all these other things. It's not that we need to exert greater willpower. It's not all of the things that we think it is. It's not that we need to demand more of ourselves. It's that we need to be gentler and more compassionate and accepting of ourselves and our limitations and our failings and shortcomings, and to really understand that in a new way, which only comes through our willingness just to continually surrender. So that's really the essence of what we're exploring here. But I want to be clear, this is it's not entirely sort of a metaphysical thing or a psychological thing or a spiritual thing. It is all those things, but it's also a biological, physiological thing. And for me, that's one of the beautiful things about it, understanding it or approaching it through a somatic angle, okay, is that we tune into the sensations, we tune into the experience of being here and our experience of a body. And that is our path, it's our gateway for discovering how to be more compassionate and gentle with ourselves. And through that, to open to healing and to allow that healing to take place at all levels, beyond our usual conditioned ways of trying to force it. So, with all that said, which I certainly hope is a helpful and useful backdrop for exploration, if possible, for you, we'll explore sitting up today. If that's not comfortable for you as always, then you need to make the adjustment. It's perfectly fine. So part of this process is that we're learning to trust in the perfection of what is. And that means the perfection of where we are right now, our starting point, the perfection even of our conditioning, because our unique conditioning is the portal through which we get to discover exactly what it is that we are here to discover, our unique gifts that we're here to share. And so even though it can be very challenging and trying at times, and I know that, that's a big part of it. So be patient with yourself and be truthful about what is appropriate for you in this moment. If you are able to sit upright, then I will invite you to explore the possibility of sitting without leaning against the backrest. So ideally, you'd be sitting on a firm, relatively flat surface. And if you're sitting like on a chair or stool, you'd be able to put your feet on the floor. If you're sitting on the floor or on another surface cross-legged, then obviously your feet are on the floor, but not the soles of the feet. And the reason for not leaning against a backrest, if possible, is that it gives you more access to the sensations. It gives you more alignment and thereby more direct connection to the intrinsic support of your body, which is your skeletal system. And so, a big part of this work is learning to trust in that intrinsic support at all levels. And if we can't trust in the bones of our body to support us and hold us up, then that indicates the degree of distrust that we have, and gives us a really good indication as to why we're straining and struggling so much. So this can be very humbling. So if you feel humbled by it, that's normal. But as always, you have to find what's right for you. So I invite you to explore challenging yourself beyond your ideas of what's possible, but see that you can do it in a way that's gentle. And if you don't find that you can do that, if it's too strenuous or overwhelming, then you do what is actually possible for you in this moment, honoring that. And so close the eyes and closing the eyes is helpful for being truthful, because with their eyes open, we have so much outward focus that we can ignore a great deal. But with the eyes closed, maybe we start to notice the amount of strain that we are making. And so you just tune in and really tell the truth. Are you going to be able to, for the next 37 minutes, are you going to be able to be in this posture? And maybe you don't know the answer to that question. If it's a definite no, then you make an adjustment. If it's an I'm not sure, then great, you explore it, find out. You can always adjust later if need be. And if you feel confident, then that's wonderful. So just notice what's here. Notice, as we often start out, the low-hanging fruit, as I call it. So just notice where the sensations call out to you. You might notice where there is a sense of strain or discomfort, or you might experience it as some sort of emotion even. But just notice where you have that experience, and then just see if it's possible to soften the amount of effort taking place there, just to the best of your ability. So in this process of learning, we're learning how to soften the unnecessary effort. At first, we don't know. That's the point. That's entirely the point, is that we don't know. We've lost that skill. We have not cultivated it. We've overdeveloped our skill of making effort, and we've lost our skill of softening and releasing the effort that's no longer necessary. So you don't demand of yourself 100%. It's okay. Maybe 1%, 2%, 5%, 10%. If you can soften, that's wonderful. And you just allow yourself to scan, or not even scan, but just be called to whatever you're called to, and don't linger too long in one location, because then we get out of balance. So the whole system is one system. If we just fixate on the lower back or something like that, then we just create an imbalance. So we want to just allow ourselves to dwell there briefly, just enough to surrender and release and soften whatever can be softened. And then you just notice what is next calling for your attention. And you just move your attention there and soften. And as you do this, also see if you can start to become aware of the connection between these areas. So in our minds, we usually have them sort of siloed. This area is separate from that area, and there's no real connection. But see, as you're moving your attention, if you start to notice that as you soften in one area, then that starts to help you to become aware of some other area. So there's a connection. And then as you soften in that area, helps you to become aware of some other area, and so forth. So you start to really feel and notice directly the connection, so that you start to really get a clearer sense of the whole self as one reality, rather than just these separate parts. And then also, let's take a moment. Hopefully that gave you enough time to get to the low-hanging fruit. If you're only just taking a few seconds each place, then that should get most of it. And now let's just gently scan, sort of systematically, from head to toe. And here we're doing the same thing as before, except we're just scanning instead of being drawn to the areas. So you just start at the top of the head and just notice if there's any unnecessary effort there. And if there is, you just soften it to whatever degree possible. So importantly, softening means that you just release, you just surrender, you cease to make the effort. And don't worry if you don't sense any tension or discomfort or strain there. If not, that's fine. You just move on and just take a second or two at each location. So you just kind of move down forehead, ears, back of the head, so forth, down until you reach the bottoms of the feet. So just take a moment to do that. And here too, don't linger anywhere too long, just for a few seconds each area. So now we'll tune into the breath as we often do. I have taken to calling it the primal movement because it is the movement that we first make when we are born, and it's the last movement we make while inhabiting this body. And we make that movement pretty much every moment in between. So this is a very important movement, and one that we usually don't give too much attention to, or if we do, it's usually making more effort instead of releasing the effort and surrendering to the natural breath. So that's what we're exploring here, is this possibility of allowing that natural breath to be present. So just start by noticing the breath. Maybe you notice that there is no breathing. Maybe you notice hyperventilation. Whatever you notice, you just notice it and just see that to the best of your ability. Don't make any conscious effort to superimpose or overlay some new pattern. Don't try and change it. Of course, it will change because you're aware, but just don't try to change it. Instead, just allow whatever change occurs to happen by virtue of you being aware. So you just notice what is happening with the breath and notice the quality of the experience. Is it pleasurable? Is it satisfying? Or does it feel strained and effortful and maybe incomplete, unsatisfying? And it doesn't have to be at either extreme. It could be somewhere in between. Probably for most of us, is somewhere in between. And then just notice the exhalations. So of course there's a cycle and that's repeating. So you're inhaling, there's a transition, then there's the exhalation, and there's a transition. And that cycle is repeating over and over and over and over and over. So we're not changing that, of course, but in that cycle, each time that you exhale, now bring a new quality of open awareness to it and be curious about the experience of the exhalation. And of course, we've done this many times, but just see that you can approach it in a fresh way. So just be willing to drop everything that you think you know, because every time we explore it, we file away some new ideas about what is good and correct, and then we think we know. But here we're not wanting to become super smart and the world's best breathers. Rather, we're really interested in surrendering to the natural breath, which is something that is gifted to us. It's not something that we have to work for. We just have to be present enough to allow it to move us. So each exhalation, just be aware of the experience of the exhalation and notice, does this exhalation feel satisfying? And notice in particular if there's any strain in the exhalation. So you might notice some strain or discomfort in the throat or in the face or in the chest or in the abdomen, in the shoulders, anywhere, even the feet and hands, the back of the torso, anywhere you might notice And just notice if there's any strain or discomfort. And just allow this intention now that the exhalation can be smooth and effortless and non-strenuous and pleasurable. So obviously we can't force that. So be really careful that that habit of force doesn't creep in too much. And just see that this intention can just be allowed very lightly to start to direct the experience without forcing anything. It's allowing, it's opening for this possibility of the natural expression of a non-strenuous, effortless, pleasurable, satisfying exhalation. So you want to be allowing for change to take place. So be aware of where there's still rigidity, where there's still a mechanical quality to the exhalation, and be just gentler. So we're not trying to force a change. Just slowly, bit by bit, allow it to open up so that you can allow the exhalation without any of the habit, the rigid habits interfering with it. So that will probably change the volume and the shape and the location of the exhalation in your experience, and that's fine. And this process, by the way, it can sometimes be a little scary, or a lot scary, depends. There's a lot that's held up in all of this chronic efforting. There's a lot of emotion and energy there. So that's why we want to be extra, extra gentle. And now let's also start to bring the same quality of awareness to the inhalation. So we're still aware of the exhalation in the same sort of way, but we're also starting to now include the inhalations in our awareness. So you just start to notice what's the quality of the inhalation. What is this experience? Is this inhalation satisfying? Is it non-strenuous? Just be aware of that. And of course, already you might start to notice there's some intentionality, so we can just invite that in, this intention that the inhalation can also be non-strenuous, satisfying, and pleasurable. So now you really notice on the inhalation where there's still effort being made. And you just start to soften that. And it's a slow and steady process. So if you're finding that this provokes some discomfort or some impatience or whatever may be the case, that's okay, that's normal. And just be willing to allow that, because you're learning you're learning at a subtle level how all of these problems manifest. So it's very powerful, very humbling. I'm always, even now, amazed at how much impatience is still here, how much violence is still in the system. So very humbling. And then we can also invite this intention that now the inhalation and the exhalation can both be extended as much as possible without introducing any strain. So this is now inviting us to play and explore and open to something even more beyond our conditioning. So this is like a next level. So if you're already feeling quite challenged, maybe you just stay where you are. But if you're feeling like, okay, I'm ready for a little bit of I could take a little bit more of a challenge, then you take, allow this intention, allow for the inhalation and the exhalation to be as elongated as possible without any strain. So now what's happening is we're becoming aware of those edges, those transitions, and noticing where there's still some mechanical rigidity in those, and where there's a self-imposed limitation that says, I've got to stop it here. It's dangerous and uncomfortable to allow anything beyond that. I have to maintain this. And so we're discovering that just by being aware with this intention that the inhalation and exhalation can both be as elongated as possible without any introduction of strain. And if that seems very challenging, that's maybe, I would say, normal. So don't be worried about that. If it's too much, you just ease up. Don't worry about it. But this really will challenge us into these gray areas. So it shines a light, allows us to become more aware of our conditioning and the limitations, and where we shy away from certain kinds of experience, certain kinds of emotion. It's all held up and bottled in these areas where we avoid. So this is just shining the light of awareness into these areas so that we can't avoid them. So now we'll do a little bit of other movement. So if you would like to open the eyes, it might be advisable for the other movements. Just do so slowly. If you open the eyes too quickly, it's not like it's going to harm you greatly, but it's a kind of a shock because we've taken all this time to really cultivate this subtlety of awareness. So you want to be kind to yourself and not shock yourself. So slowly open the eyes. And we're going to do a little bit of exploration, ostensibly of the jaw, but as we'll see, everything is really connected, so it's hard to isolate one thing. So to begin with, let's bring your right hand to the left collarbone. So if you don't know where your collarbone is, it comes from the base of the throat over to the shoulder. So you can just bring your hand there, and maybe you can feel the collarbone, or maybe you're not really sure what you're feeling. And that's okay, because we're all starting wherever we are. And so this is a process of clarifying and discovery. So if you're not sure, don't lie to yourself that, oh yeah, I've got it. You just tell the truth. Well, I'm not really sure. So now you're in a good position. If you're honest that you're not sure, now you can really learn. So you've got the hand there. Maybe have confidence that you've got it on the collarbone. Maybe you're not really sure what you're feeling. For some of us, there's so much tension there. We can't really even feel the bone. There's just this constant, I even can feel a lot of this for myself, a lot of tension here in the soft tissue. So you might wonder, what does this have to do with the jaw? Well, there are connections. So now you keep your, you want to have your hands, slide your hand over to the left a little bit. So it's not right here on the, where the breastbone meets with the collarbone, but a little bit over to the left. And then you're going to just keep your hand, rest your hand there as comfortably as possible. So let the right arm and shoulder and elbow be resting next to or on the chest. So you want to be able to be comfortable here. Don't want to be straining unnecessarily just to place the hand here. Let the thumb rest as well. And then we're going to just turn the eyes to the right and let the head turn to the right, just as far as is comfortable. So that might just be a very small amount, or it might be a larger amount, but don't move beyond your range of confidence. And what I want you to do is be aware of what you're feeling under your fingers there on the collarbone. So you should be feeling something. And you don't have to know what those things that you're feeling are. Just know that you're feeling them and just feel that. And then turn the eyes back to center and bring the head back to center. And do all of this while you're aware of your breathing, so that you're not holding the breath. Allow the breathing still to be relaxed and satisfying. So the movement should be slow. If you're just moving rapidly, then there's not much value in that. And then let's just repeat this several times. So you just turn the eyes to the right and the head to the right as far as is comfortable. So there's no prize for being able to turn your head 180 degrees. You maybe just turn the head 10 degrees, and maybe that's enough for you. Maybe 45 degrees, who knows? But whatever is appropriate for you. And you're feeling whatever you feel under the fingers there on the left collarbone. And then turn the head back to center, following the eyes. Do that 2 or 3 more times at your own pace. So you're feeling whatever you feel under the fingers. And now see, as you're feeling that, each time you turn the head, can you allow for that to soften? Maybe it softens even just automatically. But if you bring some intention there, then maybe you find that it can soften even more, so that you start to, I don't know, maybe you start to feel that you actually can sense where the collarbone is. Maybe you find that your left shoulder actually starts to relax a little bit. Maybe you find that you can maybe breathe a little bit more pleasurably. And then when next your head is back to center, just slide the hand down and let the hand and arm come to rest. And now just close the eyes and notice the difference between the two sides of the neck and the jaw. And when you're ready, slowly open the eyes. And we're going to repeat that. So you can bring again, the right hand to the left collarbone. And hopefully it's clearer now where that collarbone is. And now notice and again, remember, let that arm and shoulder and elbow, and wrists and fingers really rest as much as possible so that you're not straining. Make sure that you're still able to breathe in a relaxed way. And we're going to do that same movement, but before we do, I want you to notice now the connection between your the left side of your jaw and your left ear and your collarbone. So you've got your hand placed on the collarbone, which helps you to be more aware of that. And then to help yourself be more aware of the jaw and the left side of the jaw and the left ear, let the back teeth part. You can keep the lips together, or you could open the lips, whatever's most comfortable for you, but just make sure that those back teeth are parted so that you're not grinding your teeth, so that you can start to be aware of the space between the back teeth on the left side and the left ear and the left collarbone. And then see that you can, to the best of your ability, remain aware of all of that space in the back teeth and the ear and the space between the back teeth and the ear and the collarbone as you turn the eyes to the right and the head follows to the right. And so notice, do you have a habit of tensing up the jaw when you turn the head? And just let that jaw remain relaxed. And if the jaw naturally moves a little bit without you doing the movement, that's fine. But be aware of that space, and then turn the eyes back to center and the head back to center, still being aware of that space of the back of the teeth on the left side and the ear and the collarbone. So do that 2 or 3 more times at your own pace, remaining aware of the jaw and letting the jaw remain soft. So now you're aware of the jaw and the collarbone and letting all of that soften as you're turning the head and eyes. And then when you're next at center, you can slide the hand down and let the hand and arm rest. And close the eyes for a moment and now notice the difference between the left side and the right side. I notice a big difference. My left side of my head and neck feels so long, and I have so much awareness of that whole area compared to the right. Okay, so now we'll open the eyes slowly and bring the the left hand to the right collarbone. So we're going to mirror what we just did. And be sure that you're letting the left arm and shoulder and wrists and elbow and hand all be relaxed. And now you're going to be aware of the sensations under your hand on the right collarbone as you turn the eyes to the left and the head to the left. And remember, you're only turning as far as is totally comfortable for you, right to the edge of that, not straining. And then turn the eyes and head back to center. And just repeat that 2 or 3 more times at your own pace, slowly and smoothly. Because remember, it's all about the awareness, and see that each time, maybe you can allow the tissue there under your hand, under your fingers, to soften and lengthen just by releasing, just by relaxing. And then when you're next back to center, let the hands slide down and close the eyes for a moment. And now notice the difference between the right and left sides. Then when you're ready, slowly open the eyes. And again, bring the left hand to the right collarbone. Make sure that the hand and wrist and arm and shoulder are relaxed so that you're not straining unnecessarily. And then be aware now of the space between the right side of the jaw and the right ear and the right collarbone. And let the back teeth of the jaw separate so that you can be aware of the space between the teeth at the back and that space and its relationship to the space inside the ear and the space between there and the collarbone. And you're going to remain aware of that to the best of your ability as you slowly turn the eyes to the left and the head to the left. And this time, be aware if you have any habit of tensing up in the jaw, and let that soften so that the jaw can just be completely relaxed as you turn the eyes and head, and then you turn the eyes and head back to center while the jaw continues to remain relaxed. So you're aware of the relaxed jaw and the space between the jaw and the collarbone. Then do that 2 or 3 more times at your own pace. And you might find now that the head can comfortably turn further. So just be willing to also explore that without strain, but just allowing. So you notice where there's a habitual limitation, but if you just soften and allow, then without strain, maybe the head turns further as the jaw remains relaxed. And then when you're next back to center, you can slowly slide the hand down and close the eyes for a moment and just notice now both the right side and the left side. Okay, and now slowly open the eyes and just make sure you're still aware of your breathing, letting the breath be gentle. And also remember, with all of this, it can seems almost like nothing, but it can release a lot of emotion, energy. So if you're feeling a lot, that's normal. And always remember that it's up to you to regulate all of this. So if you feel like you know you've had enough for now, you always respect that. Which I'm giving you that advice at the end of our exploration today. But it's just good to remember always that when we're doing these, that it's up to you to regulate it. So you can always do less. You can always pause. So that's all we're going to do today. I always have much more planned, but you know, we do what is appropriate. So as always, remember that this can seem like nothing. I know that, or on the other hand, it might seem like a great deal. So particularly if you feel or have the sense of, oh, I didn't do anything and this was, uh, easy peasy and I can just go about my day as usual. I strongly caution you um, to be extra gentle because even though it can seem like nothing, it's very, uh, it's a very powerful learning experience. And what we're learning is just very different than what we're accustomed to learning. We're accustomed to cramming in more doing. And this is the opposite of that. This is learning how to undo. And that's why it seems like nothing sometimes, is because we're only looking for more doing. But when we're uh, when we're presented with undoing, we don't recognize that as a legitimate learning experience, but it is a very powerful learning experience. So your entire nervous system is adjusting to that learning, and that learning process continues for some while. So at least for the rest of today, that process is continuing. And so it's very important to be respectful of that, and don't push yourself if at all possible today. Be extra gentle with yourself. If you need, if sometimes because of the amount of learning, the nervous system can become fatigued. And so if you find that you're a little fatigued, then just rest. It's normal when we learn a lot that we need more rest. So give yourself that. Be sure to nourish yourself in all important ways. Just whatever is important for you. That could be taking a nice bath, making sure that you're eating nourishing food, being conscious of what else you're consuming. It's like we can do all of this powerful learning, and then if you go spend the next hour looking at stuff on Facebook or listening to the news, then you introduce a lot of chaos and negativity into the system, which will interfere. So just, and you'll be more sensitive to it. So just take good care of yourself. Just, do what you know is good for you, that feels truly nourishing. Take good care of yourself. I mean, that's always good advice, but especially today. Also, as I often point out, the part of this process brings about a lot more awareness, and it can release a lot from the system. So you may well find that you encounter certain kinds of experiences that maybe some of them you might find to be quite pleasant. Some of them you might find to be unpleasant. And so if that happens, then don't dismay. It's just know that it's part of the process, and as it's coming into awareness, it's here to be healed and released, so that you no longer are burdened with that. So just be sure that you're again just gentle. If you find that you're irritable or sad or any of these sorts of things, don't catastrophize it. Don't make a big deal out of it. Actually, I would say be encouraged and give thanks, and that this healing is taking place, that you no longer are having to hold on to this that is not of real benefit to you or to this world. So by it coming into awareness, it's being released, and you just make use of the same learning by continuing to soften and allow and let it flow. And as you let it flow, then you'll see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And, if you're ever feeling confused or overwhelmed, or you have doubts or questions or concerns, please let me know. That's what I'm here for. It's important. It's very important to me that nobody's left out in the cold, so to speak. I know that can be really challenging, and I don't want people to be in that position. So I'm here to offer support. If you have any challenges or doubts or questions, if you need anything, let me know. And that's it for today. So thank you as always for joining me, and blessings to you all. And I will see you next time. Bye for now.